North Korea conducted its sixth and most powerful nuclear test on the 3rd of September.
대륙간 탄도 로켓 장착용 수소탄 시험에서 완전 성공.
Previously, tests were conducted once every 3 to 4 years. However, over the last 20 months, a total of 3 nuclear tests have taken place with stronger explosive power. Each hydrogen bomb can be over 1,000 times more powerful than an atomic bomb, even if it's the same size and weight. The North claims that they have virtually developed hydrogen bombs capable of fitting on an intercontinental ballistic missile, heightening tensions around the world. The international community is coming together to condemn North Korea, as President Moon Jae-in has also called for the strongest possible response to the nuclear test.
북한이 핵 미사일 계획을 완전하고 검증 가능하며 비가역적인 방법으로 포기하도록 북한을 완전히 고립시키기 위한 유엔 안보리 제재 결의 추진 등 모든 외교적 방법을 강구해 나가기로 하였습니다.
Despite the warnings and sanctions, North Korea conducted its 6th nuclear test, raising tensions in the Korean Peninsula and Northeast Asia to unprecedented levels.
Hello, welcome to Peninsula 24. I'm Chang-su, your host for this show today. Joining me in the studio today, to my left, is Professor Cho Jeong-hoon. He's a professor at the Graduate School of International Studies at Ajou University. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
And to my right is Dr. Myong-hyun, Research Fellow at the Asan Institute for Power Study here in Seoul. Thank you for coming.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Welcome to you both, gentlemen. Thank you very much. You know, last week we had another terrible development here in the Peninsula. North Korea tested their 6th nuclear test, registering like a 5 to 7% point, or even 6.3% on the Richter scale. It had an estimated blast yield of 50 to 150 kilotons of TNT. And previous to that, North Korea filed another longer-range missile over Hokkaido, Japan. And we are facing with this kind of series of threats and provocation from North Korea. And many people here in Korea are beginning to worried and concerned about the North Korean threats. So what is your assessment to this latest provocation, Professor Cho?
Well, obviously, this is a very serious situation. Many reasons, rightful reason to be very concerned and worried. But I think it's time to remain calm and try to analyze what's behind North Korea's these actions. I think North Korea needs to take this action because of the following reasons. First, I think what they really need is a sense of attention and invitation from international community toward a negotiation or beginning of negotiation of what they want, a security of their regime and economic sanction lifting up. Second, from many sources, it seems that various sanctions that the international community has put on North Korea seem to have some result, meaning that the price of commodities in Pyongyang and throughout the country has gone up, and the flow of capital has gone down, meaning that people start to feel the hinge from the sanctions. So from the leadership perspective of North Korea, they feel getting urgent and getting necessary to take this action, dramatic actions toward nuclear tests to show that we are ready and we really want to negotiate. As a response, I think it's no time for making a big drama out of this test. If we make the more we make a big drama out of this nuclear test, the more North Korea will achieve its objective. I think my suggestion is you remain calm, and as I said, analyze what's the rationale and what are the principles with which we need to deal with North Korea and how to cooperate with the international community.
Yeah, I mean, it might sound like an oxymoron, but I think North Korea's action, I think it could be both escalatory and de-escalatory at the same time. If you remember, until last Sunday, I mean, right before the North Korea's nuclear test, the biggest concern that the international community had about North Korea was the possibility of North Korea launching ICBM or like IRBM targeting the U.S. territories, such as the island of Guam or island of Hawaii or even Alaska. So that was the biggest concern that we had, and we also had a concern about the possible U.S. reaction against it. There's some concern that the U.S. President Trump could retaliate using the military option, which would increase the risk of a war breaking out in the Korean Peninsula. So in a way, North Korea, by carrying out the 6th nuclear test, has paradoxically could be said that it stepped away from the brink, and instead it engaged in a de-escalatory maneuver, because 6th nuclear test is something that the Chinese are most concerned about, not so much the Americans. And for that reason alone, North Korea has succeeded in walking away from the brink, but while at the same time maintaining a very high level of tension.
So they said they have successfully tested this ICBM-ready hydrogen bomb for the first time. And how do you think the level of their technology? Because do you think North Korea has really arrived that level yet?
Yeah, I think you're a better expert in this question than I am. But then what I can say is that North Korea's declaration that it had reached a completion of the hydrogen bomb development should be taken with a lot of seriousness, I believe, because one thing that's consistent about the different experts' estimation of North Korea's speed of nuclear development is actually that we, the experts, have been underestimating their capability as well as the speed of development. And that's something, therefore, I believe that even though there's no objective proof that North Korea had succeeded in carrying out a hydrogen bomb blast, we are looking at the trend of North Korea's rapid, successful development of nuclear capability. We have to give them some credit. And so even if North Korea hasn't reached the final stage of nuclear development, I would say that North Korea is going to soon achieve that state, probably before we expect. And another hint about North Korea's level of development is the statement that North Koreans issued right after the test. They said, instead of declaring that their development of nuclear capability has been completed, they said instead that North Korea had entered the final stage of North Korean nuclear development. Therefore, North Koreans were leaving some room, some space, in the sense that there's some more room for them to develop their capability further. So I think North Korea hasn't reached the complete development of nuclear capability, but I think North Korea is going to soon get there.
Okay.
No, I tend to agree with Dr. Ko's assessment. I think North Korea has adopted a strategy so-called separation between missile and nuke. They have shown, they have done a number of tests of missile capacity, reaching out and extending the distance after every time they test. The last one has shown that they can strike Guam and bypassing the Japan island. Now, this is significant because they are now coming back to the nuclear test and even hydrogen bomb test. And what they want to show is not only missile capacity, but also the nuke capacity, hydrogen capacity, they are ready. So even though technically maybe there's a few more steps to go to be complete with the nuclear missile capacity as a nation, I think it's rational to consider North Korea de facto now has a nuclear capacity. Any assessment below that runs a risk of underestimating North Korea's capacity.
You mean your point is we have to become more realistic in terms of recognizing North Korea's nuclear and missile capability?
That's right.
Yeah, okay. But the day they did it, on Sunday, that was the first day of the BRICS in Xiamen, China. So this is a kind of slap in the face of China. Then China became very angry about because they put the cold water on this international, very international, big event for Mr. Xi Jinping. And the date was, I think, intentionally picked up because there's a 9th of September, 3rd, at 12 o'clock by Pyongyang time, 9 plus 3, 12, because North Korea knows they are very interested in numbers. 9 means very good number, 3 means good number, 12 means a perfect number. So 9th of 3rd, at 12 o'clock, it's Pyongyang time. So according to some analysts, it makes perfect sense for Kim Jong-un because he really believes in the numbers and the significance it carries to the outside world. Okay, let me ask the questions. So what is the motivation behind this sudden nuclear hydrogen bomb test on that specific date and specific time? What is the, beginning with Dr. Go this time?
Yes, I believe there's clearly a certain message that the North Koreans trying to send by timing their test at such a date and time. There's no doubt about it. North Koreans, as you said, loves this kind of combination of numbers and dates. But I think there's also a strategic motivation behind it. Right now, I think North Korea is 100% focused on compelling the United States to come to the negotiation table and give North Korea what it wants, which is the status of a nuclear state. And therefore, North Korea has been very busy in terms of implementing their provocation strategy. They've been launching several missiles, IRBMs, ICBMs. So in a way, they're building momentum. And I think regardless of the major summits taking place around the Korean Peninsula, I think Kim Jong-un's primary objective was to keep the momentum of provocation strategy. And also it coincided with the end of the Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercise, which North Koreans are very sensitive about. So I think these are all different combinations that brought North Korea to carry out major provocations back to back. And the fact that there are major summits such as BRICS summit and as well as the meetings of 3 leaders from Korea, Japan, Russia taking place in this region was like an icing on the cake for Kim Jong-un.
Yes, I think, as you said, North Korea has been very peculiar in picking up date and time. And if you follow that logic, I think the last Sunday was very, very significant in many sense. To me, the reason they pick up, or the result or impact it has on picking up that day is as much it angers South Korea and United States, it has embarrassed China. Because China was preparing this big show, BRICS and other big show, and it was very big momentum for Chinese leadership leading up to this the Communist Party communion in November. And it basically spoiled the whole show. And the reaction from Chinese leadership and media is, as expected, very very angry and embarrassing. So I think it's a strong message to China that the way you deal with me is not acceptable to me. And this is way I show my capacity.
Yeah, you're right. The China and North Korea has been pretty much dependent on each other because for China, is responsible for 80% of the North Korea's import and exports with China. And it's becoming much more dependent on Chinese oil and support at the outside. So we are talking about the role that should be played by China quite often by President Trump and also many South Koreans. China is the only one who can really play kind of important influence over North Korea. But so far, we are a little bit disappointed because North Korea has been playing a very wise game. So that China cannot play that kind of significant cards yet because given their international security responsibility and their strategic responsibility or leverage over North Korea in this. That's something we can. But moving to Russia this time, because we're talking about the Chinese role, but very seldom about the Russian role in terms of pressing more pressure on North Korea for this particular sanctions. Even though they are the members of the UN Security Council, they have been always support all kinds of UN Security Council sanctions. But so far, Russia has been joining China, rather, in terms of not putting too much pressure on the Chinese, North Korean leadership. What did you read on the Russia's role this time? Because we really want them to play a much more positive role.
I mean, Russia is we believe Russia to be a natural player in this crisis because, first of all, Russia would like to use crises such as North Korea's nuclear crisis, as well as Syria's crisis, to increase Russia's profile, as well as prestige in the international arena. And also, both North Korea and Syria happen to be the former Soviet client states, and they count with leaderships that are sympathetic towards Russia. So, in a way, Russia could be more influential in those countries than any other countries, including China. But the problem with that assumption is because Russia also would like to, when it comes to North Korea at least, Russia would like to limit the North Korea's ambition to become a nuclear state. Russia is a member of the United Nations Security Council, also is one country that, one of the 5 countries that are officially recognized to be a nuclear state. So Russia would like to maintain this nuclear oligopoly, also preserve the NPT regime as a pillar of the international security. So even though Russia would like to mediate the conflict between North Korea and the United States, I would say because North Korea's ambition is to become part of the nuclear club, there's not so much that Russia can do in that regard. In that sense, Russia's role in this region could be limited, and we shouldn't put too much of high expectation on Russia.
Turn to Japan, because the Japanese, many of them are really worried about, concerned, and they're even participating in kind of drills, and some of them are actually making some kind of underground shelter area so that they can escape in terms of there is a kind of nuclear strike from North Korea. And Japan has been pretty much concerned, and they're really worried, and they're becoming worried about the missiles flying over Japan. Okay, let's connect with Japan. We have Professor Narushige Michita of the National Research Institute for Policy Studies, or GRIPS, in Tokyo. So we are going to connect with Mr. Michita, please. Hello.
Hello, good to be with you. Thank you very much for the kind invitation.
North Korea conducted its 6th nuclear test on September 3rd. I'm very interested in knowing how North Korea's threats were perceived in Japan. And tell me a little bit about the public opinion's response to that. What do the people on the streets feel like?
Nuclear test, certainly it's really concerning, because unlike in the previous test, the explosion yield of the recent nuclear a device that was used in the recent test was much powerful. And so it was used, the last one, the 5th nuclear test, the explosion yield was like 11 to 12 kilotons. But seemingly this time around, it has reached at least several teens of kilotons, and maybe possibly more than 100 kilotons. So that, explosion yield is much more powerful. That's really concerning.
Okay. For the past several years, we are talking about the sanctions imposed by the United Security Council, and also there have been independent sanctions by South Korea, the US, and Japan, for example. But how much effective do you think these sanctions have been proven so far in terms of deterring further provocation from North Korea? Or do you think we need more stronger measures to deal with the issue?
Actually, the sanctions themselves cannot stop North Korean military actions. Rather, it can actually accelerate North Korean actions, because North Korea have to, stand up to our pressure and try to defy it, right? Our pressure. So, but in the sanctions will be effective only in the long run. China is actually the most important actor in this, because China is the largest trade partner for North Korea, and China provides energy, food, and all the necessary goods for North Korea. So if China does a good job of imposing sanctions and implementing sanctions in a full-fledged manner, sanctions, I would say, think will be quite effective in the long run.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Sasan. Thank you, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Over the last week, we are facing serious threats from North Korea and Japan and Korea and United States and some other countries as well. They are responding with also their own rationale and very tough rhetoric that they were going to deal hardest blow to North Korean threat if they do not stop another threats. But given the latest nuclear test from North Korea, because it's a serious test, and we are really beginning to concerned about this kind of North Korean threats, so how do you think there's going to be a kind of dramatic change in U.S. terms in terms of employing all kind of measures they have, diplomatic measures and military means, do you see some kind of shift in the way they're going to deal with North Korea? Beginning with, let me begin with Professor Cho.
Well, I think this has upset U.S. for sure, but it's not unexpected upsetting. I think it was a matter of timing and how. And the way it upset this time, not only anger U.S. but also embarrassed China, as I said. It's not an easy game for U.S. to play. If it's just one North Korea located in an island in Pacific Ocean, then the answer must have been simple and clear. Yeah? Control it with force. But this game has a number of players, including China. So whatever message it gives to North Korea should be reflected in how China will receive it. So it's a lot more complicated than a simple bilateral hostility game the U.S. wants to frame. And China has been repeatedly saying that the issue of Korean Peninsula is an issue between North Korea and U.S. And as you mentioned, Russia is coming into play. Even though Russia has traditionally abstained itself from engaging in this international conflict mediation role, if any significant issues happen nearby their territory, Russia has come out very actively in looking back the history. So Nostra now is on the table as well as member of Security Council. So my guess is U.S. will still deploy two pillar approaches. On the face of it, of course, the rhetorics will be stronger and stronger. But I don't think, I will not be surprised personally if a bilateral discussion between North Korea and U.S. is taking place at the moment.
Mr. Moon Jae, President Moon Jae made it very clear that there should be no another war in the Korean Peninsula. And there's a very clear message. But this message was taken a little bit very serious by Washington because they say we have to employ all kinds of means, including military means. So this drawing kind of red line, or because he actually proposed a red line, and it was not a dead red line in the sand, it was a red line. And many people are beginning to believe that North Korea has already or near to cross that red line. This generated some concern and fury and also confusion both in Seoul and Washington people are beginning to see that there's a kind of disconnect between Seoul and Washington again. But I think this is too much because we're on the same page and how we could deal with North Korean threats more effectively under the very strong ironclad alliance with the United States. No question about that. But many people are calling for, from Washington DC particularly, calling for all kinds of different types of forms of responses. For example, like a measure to measure. So what did you read?
Yeah, my take is that I think, as you have said, President Moon and President Trump have agreed, they have an agreement on the major points when it comes to assessing the seriousness of North Korean provocations. But I think they differ in terms of approaches. Even though both President Trump and President Moon have put on the table engagement as a major pillar of approach towards solving the North Korean problem. But the challenge is that President Moon seems to insist that South Korea to take the lead when it comes to the engagement approach towards North Korea. And, and also the nature of the engagement from South Korea and the United States differ quite a bit. For the United States, the engagement towards North Korea is about bringing about the denuclearization of North Korea, whereas for President Moon, it is to create essentially bring about the stability of the Korean Peninsula and restart the economic engagement in North Korea, which will tie down North Korea from engaging in further provocations. So I think at this point hasn't been quite clearly explained between the two sides. I think that's the reason why we are hearing all these noises, so to speak, from Washington. So in a way, I think that's the major challenge that South Korea and United States face right now. And I believe that President Moon would like to use engagement as a way to invite North Korea to get off this current path of a provocation strategy. I'm sure President Moon thinks that North Korea's current escalatory strategy is a dead end. And eventually, North Korea will find that engaging with South Korea in dialogue will prove to be an exit ramp from the current situation.
I think a growing consensus in Korea that we have to deal with Korea with much more serious and tougher military means. So as a matter of fact, our Minister of National Defense, Cho Jeong-hoon, talked to his counterpart and later report that he asked some more deployment of additional use strategic weapons in and around the Korean Peninsula as a sign of stronger defense, deterrence, and defense. So this has been what we've been talking about for the last week, and probably we're coming back with this very similar topics next week. Thank you very much, gentlemen. And we'll be back around this time next week with more analysis of what's happening in and around the Korean Peninsula. Until then, take care.